Have we offended every fan base? And by we, by the way, I mean you. I don't think I've said anything crazy.
Who else could I make fun of?
We already hit Michigan State.
Yeah, we made Michigan.
That's fine.
When do we have the conversation about Dan Lanning?
It's the arrival. I came in the league, went straight for the title.
He's got it! Jeremiah Smith!
The Michigan Wolverines shocked the college football world.
You know, some people gotta learn how to lose, man.
And after all that, it's Ohio State together at the mountaintop.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
This is The Rivalry. Proud to be part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
Well, this is the first time on the Rivalry podcast in like 3 years that we have not had one of our teams in a national championship game, that neither of our teams are still relevant at this point in the college football season.
Well, mine's relevant just for not reasons that I like.
Someone remarked this week on the Michigan side and said, we're not in the news.
Yeah, that's a win.
That's kind of how it feels. This is the Rivalry podcast from River Radio Ministries, presented by our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction. My name is Jace. That's JP. Michigan and Ohio State, a podcast for the greatest rivalry in all of sports. And I want to do something a little different today.
Okay, switch it up.
I get nervous sometimes that because we place our lovely sponsors midway through the episode, that people are skipping through. And it's rude. It's rude to do that. Maybe you feel a little bit then like Pat Fitzgerald in Michigan State. You're trying to build like a champion. You might not know how to execute it. Aaron and the team at Elevated Integrity Construction have a winning pedigree and a team of All-Americans. They are a juggernaut of the industry. They've built a dynasty with championship builders. If you have a home, church, or business build, go with the folks with integrity in their name. It's elevatedintegrity.com, something Michigan State would not understand. The Rivalry Podcast is also proud to partner with our friends at Homage. Since 2007, Homage has been helping fans pay homage to the people, places, teams, and moments that matter most to them. Quality craftsmanship, elite storytelling, and trademarked legendary comfort. It is, I know it's the other side of Christmas. It is still not too late to get yourself something for Christmas. Christmas 2026. And if you go down to the link below, wherever you're watching or listening right now, you'll see the little homage link there. When you click that link and buy yourself something or something for somebody else, that's fine too. You are supporting the podcast as well. Thanks for doing that. The Rivalry also proud members of the Varsity Network, powered by Learfield once again this season. Varsity Network is the must-have app if you call yourself a college football fan. Live broadcasts, on-demand podcasts just like the Rivalry, free to download. Find the Varsity Network in the App Store. Be sure to search for the Rivalry Podcast. And our friends at the Ohio Sinus Institute, because you deserve better sinus care. Get relief from the most experienced sinus specialist in Central Ohio, Dr. Boris Karanfilov, surgeon-led personalized care with over 20 years of experience, minimally invasive procedures, in-office treatments, and on-site CT imaging for better, faster answers. Thank you, the Ohio Sinus Institute. You see how easy that is?
It wasn't. I still don't know if I could pronounce half of those words.
Well, I have a great vocabulary.
There were a lot of big ones. A lot of big words in there.
By the way, wherever you are listening right now, thank you for doing that. Please rate and review. Please subscribe. Follow on social media at RivalPod. And if you want to go over to rivalpod.com, get yourself some custom RivalPod merch. We've got that for you as well. But more than anything, thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing with friends. Let's talk about Ohio State. And we talked about this last week, how sometimes, especially with rival fans, and it makes sense, right? It's called the rivalry. You'll look at transfer portal and you'll see just the sheer number of players in the portal.
Yeah.
And you'll start talking about rats on a sinking ship and a mass exodus and imploding and all this other stuff, forgetting that like 30% of college football players are or have been in the portal this offseason in a 2-week period. We record this, by the way, Monday morning, January 12th, because everything changes by the 2nd in this new
Probably
NIL world.
5 more people have entered the portal in that sentence.
Yeah. So all that being said, though, I feel like there is a sentiment, even from Ohio State fans, that there's some concern about the number of players and the type of players that are hitting the portal for you guys right now. Yeah. Is there any validity to that?
I think so.
At least in your opinion?
It's tricky, though, because I think that there are two sides to this. You've seen this kind of become the routine part of college football now, where if you look at the teams that are in these national championship games, and we've talked about it numerous times here, it's all senior led for the most part. These are experienced teams. You're not getting this far now with the expanded playoffs against these tough teams unless you've got experience. You're looking at that with Indiana. You see that with Miami. You saw that with Ohio State and Notre Dame the year before. You saw that with Michigan the year before that, and Washington the year before, within that same year. The trend now is you don't get there unless you've got some dudes that have been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
What I think gets tricky, though, is in Ohio State's case, a lot of these guys that are going into the portal are 4 or 5 star guys that were true freshmen, redshirt freshmen. These are your depth guys. And guys that had a ton of potential are starting to go out. And we talked about it last week. And at the time, there wasn't really a ton of names that were overly concerning to me. I mean, you had a couple. Aaron Scott Jr., Bryce West was one that I threw out there. Jelani Thurman was a guy that I kind of understood, but would have liked to have seen him stick around. You had some guys on the offensive line that ended up going and entering the transfer portal. And it's just seemed to progress. You've had Mylan Graham do the same thing, a wide receiver prospect. A 5-star guy. You had Bryson Rogers. He ended up leaving, joining Brian Hartline in South Florida. CJ Hicks doing the same thing.
Quincy
Porter doing the same thing, except not going to South Florida. He's not committed yet.
And by the way, the rivalry never sleeps. Quincy Porter, I mean, Michigan kind of finished runner-up in his commitment.
Well, and I've seen reports, and this is all speculation, right?
Yeah, of course.
But I've seen reports that he's crystal balled alongside of Graham to end up at Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman.
Oh, wow.
Both of them, which would be huge for them. Yeah. But those are key losses. Now, you can say Ohio State's really good at wide receiver, and I would still not hit the alarm button on that because people tend to forget that Brian Hartline's not the only person that's ever brought elite wide receiver play to the Ohio State University. He was a part of a group when he was there as a player that was a part of an elite group. This is a team that has routinely pulled out guys like Michael Thomas, Cade Uluave. I mean, you could go down the line for a long time now and pull names out of the hat and it would work. So I don't think Ohio State's going to have a fall off. You still have guys like Jeremiah Smith. You may have heard of him. He
sounds familiar.
You still have a guy like Chris Henry Jr. that's going to be coming in.
Which and guys like that are tough, right? Because I think and let me put on the unbiased college football hat for a second. So let me take kind of the Michigan foam Wolverine head off for a second. When you've got a guy like Jeremiah Smith who came in as a 5-star freshman and had an immediate impact.
Yeah.
The
Malachi Toney's.
The blessing, sure, yeah. And the blessing and curse then of going to Ohio State as a guy like Chris Henry Jr. is you are going to be expected to have that type of success right away.
I don't know if I don't think the expectation for Chris Henry specifically is there because Jeremiah is still there.
And maybe so, but I think the concern would be, to your point, and obviously, if I put the foam Wolverine head back on, it's not a concern at all. Understandably, Jeremiah Smith is far and away the guy, but there's not much else there. I mean, the whole, I think I texted you this, Brandon Ennis returning. I said, yeah, as opposed to what? Getting a corporate job? Because the dude's not going to the NFL. So it's like Chris Henry Jr., I think, is going to be expected to slide into that role very quickly. And the question is, can he do it? And the answer is maybe. We'll find out.
And I think that's valid. I think that there's a real reason and an expectation that Chris Henry Jr. comes in there and immediately is option number 2.
Yeah,
I think
he has to be.
And while I somewhat agree with you that Brandon Ennis is most likely not going to the NFL, I mean, he could have a breakout year for all we know, and that could change. Right now, I would stand on that no, he's probably not going to the league. But I would also still say he is a talented wide receiver option. Almost every other team in college football would kill to have a guy like him as their wide receiver 3. And so I see the depth behind what wide receivers we're bringing in. And it would nice to feel like you've got something in return after those guys are gone, because let's be honest, Jeremiah Smith's gone after this year. Brandon Ennis is gone after this year. Then you have Chris Henry, if you can convince him to stay, because that's one of the points that I wanted to bring up in this is I've never really been overly concerned with how the NIL is working and what that all looks like. I thought it was a necessary evil to come into the game. But now you're looking at scenarios where you've got these 4 and 5 star recruits that were recruited by Ohio State, a prominent program. They've got all this talent. They go there for a year to get their initial bag from the NIL. And then after a year, they transfer out and they want to go to these other schools and either seek an opportunity to play, or they want to go out and get a bag from somebody else. They're going to try and use that 5-star recruiting status. Or you're going to have, like Ohio State case, and this was a huge storyline, you're going to have guys like Bo Jackson. Where
let's talk about Bo Jackson for a second, because this was one of the, I don't know, between him and, these are not exactly the same, but there's just some weird NIL stuff coming down where you've got Bo Jackson over here, you got Damon Williams over here, and it's a weird situation.
I understand Bo's perspective slightly. There were reports where he was coming out and he was asking for $1.5 million, something like that, to return. Numbers were ran. People were talking about last year and what it cost for them to bring Judkins over and keep Travion to come back. And it was a little bit more than that for both of them. And people were going, okay, well, Bo, let's look at last year and what we had.
Yeah, you had a good season, but you were a freshman who was like third on the depth chart and kind of worked your way in, and that's great. And you're going to be good.
And that's
you ain't worth $1.5 million.
No, and that's the scenario you're going to start to see, though, is you're going to see these guys that come out. And I think Michigan, although they shouldn't be concerned now, this could be a legitimate concern for any program, is you have these guys 100%. That are younger. You've got a guy like Bryce, and I think you guys kind of experienced it until it resolved itself, much like the Bo Jackson scenario, where you've got guys like Andrew Marsh.
Yep.
You have guys like Bryce Underwood. You have guys like Jordan Marshall that everybody was expecting to come back and play these intricate parts of next season's offense. And they played well outside of Underwood, but like Marshall, I
got one more in.
Marshall and Marsh. Oh, it won't be the last one. Outside of those two guys, I mean, they played well, and there was fear that, hey, they might go somewhere else. And you're seeing that with Ohio State, with Bo Jackson, where people are like, we've got to lock him down because James People is gone. Your running back. CJ Donaldson's going to be, I think he's gone. I thought he was a senior.
Listen, both of those are addition by subtraction.
Yeah, fair. But right now, your running back room is bare.
It's
bare. You lost
Bo Jackson and Isaiah West.
And you lose Bo Jackson to that, and now all of a sudden...
Well, and credit to Bo Jackson, because I do think he's a really good running back, but that's a bare cupboard.
Yeah.
That's a bare cupboard.
But that's the scenario you're starting to see is you go out there and you recruit these guys so that you can hope that they can become top performers, but you also have to be prepared to pay them once they become that. And so you're seeing guys like Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham who haven't really been out there and proven themselves yet, but they've got the 5-star, and other teams that don't have the commodity that Ohio State has is going to go after them and chase them to get them to come over to their school and play. And you've got to be prepared when you're recruiting high school. It's a thing that you never really used to have to do. Yeah. And you've got to be prepared to not only pay them to convince them to come to your school, but you also have to make sure you have the reserve funds after the season to continue to keep them, because you're starting to see that left and right, even with some of these top schools. I mean, think about all of the like 4 and 5-star guys, the guys that had even been at programs for a long time or had been there and were kind of prominent starters. Luke Damon Williams is an example. DJ Lagway is an example. There's talk about Nate Frazier, the running back from Georgia, getting ready to switch. He's been crystal balled to Ohio State. I mean, it's just the world that we've lived in is becoming so chaotic that you can look at a program like Ohio State and see 30 players in the transfer portal with a good chunk of time left for people to still make decisions.
Yeah. Again, we're recording this Monday morning. Portal's open through Friday.
And you're looking at a team like Ohio State and you're seeing all these names go out. And so many different storylines all over the place. You've had storylines where players were actually liking, I think it was Graham ended up liking a tweet or something about you don't really know what's going on behind the closed doors or something like that. And people saying that he was frustrated with his role with the team. Then you have guys like Quincy Porter, where the reports are going out that he wanted to be wide receiver 1 at Ohio State. And that's why he was leaving, is because he wasn't there. And I'm looking at that and going, my guy, You've seen Jeremiah Smith play football, right? You were never. That's just not that it couldn't be your time eventually, but you weren't
going to walk
year
right
one.
in
You're not going to walk right in and take Jeremiah's spot.
I think here's what it says to me, and I'm going to credit T-Bone over at 97.1 The Fan here in Columbus, because I number one, I think he does a phenomenal show. Number two, he absolutely just nailed it on the head, where he said this past week, he said, I am tired. He said, I don't want to hear any more about boom, sign this kid, boom, 5-star here, 4-star. He's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I thought that was spot on. His point being, your high school recruiting is far less important. It's not unimportant, but it's far less important than your portal recruiting and your team retention.
100%. The game has changed.
Like, recruiting doesn't stop. And you said this, recruiting doesn't stop once you get a signature.
Yeah.
It's retention now, because you can, number one, the stars are typically well overrated, right?
Well, I mean, Brandon Ennis is an example of that.
Look at Fernando Mendoza.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he was a 2-star coming out. He just won the Heisman, and spoiler alert, he is very likely to win himself a national championship
and be a top 2 pick in the draft.
So does that mean that recruiters and all that don't know anything? No, that's not what it means. But it just means you cannot put all your eggs in that basket. Yes, you want to sign the 4- and 5-star kids. You want to sign the most talented guys you can find, 100%. Mm-hmm. But also, like to your point and to Bone's point and all that, it doesn't matter nearly as much. So yes, you want to land if you're in a recruiting battle for a 5-star against Ohio State or against Michigan, depending on what side you're on. Yeah, of course you want to sign that kid because he's probably a really talented kid. But once he's there, you now also have to try to make sure that you keep him there, because you can look and go, well, man, our recruiting class here wasn't very good. But what are we going to do? And then you go into the portal and you go, okay, well, what if we just went and got that guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Now, that's a way oversimplification, but it's also, there's a lot of truth to it too. I remember in the off season, I think it was Klatt was talking about how, and at the time I agreed, and I don't think I do anymore. And I'd be curious to hear his thoughts on that too. Where he talked about putting a roster together is like building a boat, and the transfer portal is putty. You want to use the putty to patch the holes that you have, but you can't build the whole boat out of it. I disagree.
I feel like I would have
like, I agree. I agreed at that point. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I'm looking at it now going, I don't know that that's true.
Yeah. Because
I'm looking at guys, and not that the whole team is built out of that necessarily, right? We had North Carolina as an example, right? Where it's like, this doesn't work. Okay, but Indiana went and got a transfer in Fernando Mendoza and went and got a transfer in Roman Hemby. And no, all those guys that are on that team are not portal guys, but there's 2 pretty key positions right there that you pulled out of the portal.
Ohio State is an example of that. Ohio State last season, Quinshon Judkins and Will Howard played an absolutely pivotal role.
Yeah, sure.
Caleb Downs, maybe you've heard of him, another guy that I think is just a game changer.
And so it's a different world. And so, that to me is where also it's just like, I understand. I know everybody has, their own thoughts on Harbaugh and all that. There are many reasons why Harbaugh was sick of the NCAA. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of them. I think he was absolutely just in the sense of going, among many other things. And, I know Ohio State fans have thoughts and whatever, but I 100% believe that that's one of the reasons why Harbaugh decided, yeah, I'm done. I think it's one of the reasons why Saban retired.
Yeah.
They were looking at going, this is a different world. And I don't know that, not even that I'm not cut out for it, but I don't want to deal with it.
Well, and there's been some speculation.
Those are 2 great, whatever you think of them, those are 2 great football coaches.
Well, and there's even speculation going around, and there's no absolute truth to these rumors. That's exactly what they are, is rumors. But there's talk that part of the reason so many players are going into the portal is because Ryan Day's actually thinking about going to the NFL. And it wouldn't surprise me.
Is there any smoke to
that? I've seen it from a handful of places. None of it I think is valid. I think it's worth discussing, though.
Sure.
Does there come a time? I mean, I'm an Ohio State fan through and through, and I'll be the first to tell you, Ohio State fans can be the worst people when Correct. It comes to a loss.
This is the first time we've ever agreed on the podcast.
Look at how they handled the loss to Miami. It was terrible.
Yep.
It was awful from all around. People turning their back on Julian, saying the people that were loving Ryan Day all throughout the season had his back. The second that he lost, now all of a sudden they're back to he's his old way, he can't get it done, and blah, 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 going back and just completely turning on him. And
by the way, in the midst of all this, I got not by you, I got thrown under the bus for making the comment that prior to the Big Ten championship of, oh yeah, his national title bought him time. And people were like, that's ridiculous. A national title doesn't buy you time to beat your rival. That's stupid. And I go, okay, well now that we're in the offseason, you look around at the last 5 years and tell me that it didn't.
And I think part of
what else you got to show for it?
Part of what made Ohio State fans a little bit quicker to turn around is you win the Natty, then you come in this year and you beat that team up north. You lose in the Big Ten championship, and people thought, well, it was a close game. Indiana's talented. We can shake that one off. Let's get ready for the playoffs.
And gave very little respect to Miami, by the way.
Yeah. Then you go in and you get completely outplayed. Just completely outplayed. Now you're going into the portal and you're down 30 guys. Now, granted, a good majority of them are deep depth players, but there's still some really prominent guys.
And that's the difference, right? It's not just that we've talked about this. It's not just the number. It's what players are going to be significant roles moving forward that hit the portal.
There are guys that were expected to be starters this year now that are starting to go. And the response from Ohio State, I mean, they've had a couple of visits, but they've also missed out on some of those targets. Chaz Coleman being one of them.
Yeah.
They're probably top target in the portal, ends up going and committing to Tennessee. I think right now the only committed players that they currently have is like a long snapper and a tight end. There might have been, we also got a little from Florida State. So that happened yesterday.
Even that is, it's interesting because certain sites will project as like, boom, we landed this kid who is a 4-star out of high school. I go, what does that matter at this point? Is he good?
I know he was debating returning to school or going to the draft. He's obviously a talented kid.
And that may be the case.
There's obviously reports too, as well, of like Nate Frazier officially going into the portal. Where's he going to end up? But I just think when you have that big of a gap of 30 different players that are going in with still time, you still have the rest of this week to end up going. Now, granted, on the other side of that, not to be such a downer, some of those kids can end up coming back. I mean, you saw that happen last year as well. So all that to say, and this is going to maybe sound a little bit ignorant to me, but the culture of getting these players to end up committing to your school and having them actually build a relationship with your school. The one example I'm going to give is Miami, where you look at Miami and this whole playoff run, the guys they've got on the sidelines, they've got Ray Lewis, they've got Michael Irvin, they've got former athletes that were huge, prominent players on the sidelines that you can tell are invested, that love that school. They're not just there because, well, they were the star of the team and it looks good on camera to have them be there. You can tell they're passionate about the program. For sure. And the days of that to me are dead. And it didn't really hit me until this offseason where I'm looking at it. And even after I don't remember if it was before or after Ohio State played Miami, but they were asking Jeremiah Smith something about how close were you to so-and-so. And he straight up said, I would have gone to Miami if they were winning games at the time. And I'm going, okay, well, cool. Well, you're in scarlet and gray, so I don't love hearing that because
even if it's true,
we know it's one of those like unspoken, like we kind of already knew stuff like that, but you'd like to see, having been in the program for a year, if that question would have been asked prior to him actually getting to the school, I probably feel different. But because he's been here, it's his second full season. I feel like at some point you have to have bought into the brotherhood in some way and say, yeah, I would have done that. I don't regret my decision. And maybe he did at the end. I didn't catch the second part of it, but I'm looking at just the culture shift and I'm going, you're no longer getting kids that are going to buy into your program. It's how much can you pay them to come to your school?
And at the risk of being like old man yelling at clouds, it's like that, like that's a problem, right? Like I'm not going to begrudge any kid, and we'll talk about Michigan here in 20 seconds. But like, I'm not going to begrudge any kid who's like, I want to go get my money. I want to go to a place where I can start. I get that. Yeah. But I also think that, dare I say, if I'm going to soapbox for half a second, like we're an instant gratification society and it does not bear well. I don't think. I think we're in a microwave culture where it's like, I want this and I want it now. And there are situations where I go, yeah, okay, it makes sense for this kid to transfer and it makes sense for you to go do this. And there are other situations where I go, you just want it. You want it now and you need to be patient. You need to wait. You need to it builds character, like it's that old man yelling at clouds thing, but I truly believe that.
I look at guys like Quincy Porter and that where they're talking about they want to be wide receiver 1. And I'm just sitting there a little bit frustrated, to be honest, because obviously I'm no Division I athlete, but I mean, I played sports in high school and I'm a competitive person. I know there's going to be people that roast that, but I think when you're a true, real competitor, you want to beat that guy. You want to you want to earn it, not just I'm going to go somewhere where it's easier to become the number one guy, because where's the growth in that? Yeah. And so I'd like to get back to a place where these kids, as talented as they are, got to learn the work ethic of I'm a freshman. I'm not going to go. And it's the same thing with a job in the real world. You're not going to go into a new place. You're not going to go into a new place and immediately be the number one guy. Yeah. I mean, very rarely. You've got to go there and you got to earn your stripes. And so seeing guys that are these 5 stars that have so much potential, that get to be at a great program like Ohio State, that's pumped out NFL wide receivers left and right, even before Brian Hartline was there, to see them leave and then hear quotes about how they want to go somewhere where they can be an immediate impact. And I'm going, you had that chance here to go to practice and to beat out the guy in front of you, and you didn't. And so while I'm sad that I don't get to see you live up to your potential here, there's also the little bit of a petty side of me going, I don't know if you were cut for the cloth. Yeah. And I agree with that too. And that's where, as we shift over to Michigan, Michigan fans, we like to talk about how 2023, we won the last real national title, where you had just the 14 playoff. You didn't have everybody and their brother getting into the playoffs. And it was not the Wild West NIL era where you did have some of that. You did have the JJ McCarthys who sat behind Cade McNamara and then won the starting battle. And then, had the 2020, the Blake Court, you had these, you had so many, and that was a very senior laden team. You had guys like McCarthy who loved Michigan. Whether you think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback or whatever you think about the state of the program, whatever, JJ McCarthy loves football and he loves Michigan. And you saw that the way that he was willing to be patient and to wait and to battle listen, Cade McNamara is not a great quarterback. But he's breaking news. You heard it here first. He sat behind him in 21. He entertained the quarterback battle in 22. Kind of ticked Cade off that there was a quarterback battle into the season. You know what? I never heard from JJ any complaints about it. You know why? Because JJ was willing to go out there and be a competitor. And say what you want to say. And he was good. And then in 23, he took that team to an undefeated 15-0 season. And so that's where I think those of us who are. I think there's a huge chunk of college football fans that know we may not be able to go back to that fully, but that kind of pine for some of that to stick back around. Yeah. And I have a lot of respect for guys that do stick it out. So Michigan's portal has obviously been crazy because our coach portaled out and as did a bunch of our staff. So we talked about a lot of that last week. Go back and listen to that episode. Don't need to rehash it, but Whittingham is putting together not just the staff, but he's putting together a roster. And I have been very pleased with what I've seen so far. We'll get to the areas of concern here in a moment, but Michigan on the offensive side of the ball, obviously Bryce Underwood, is he going to come back? Is he not? What about LSU? What about getting him back in the fold? I'm not saying that made decisions for other players, but I do. Obviously that helps to go, we know the guy who's going to be calling the shots on the field again. We've talked about his ups and down struggles of being a true freshman. We know that freshman to sophomore leap is the biggest, most important one for a quarterback. Now he has a dedicated quarterback coach. He's got a coach who is committed to the program and his family, which is probably good. And that's a big deal for Michigan. Getting Jordan Marshall back, understandably, a huge deal. Because you've got Jordan Marshall and you've got Savion Hyder. We talked about 5-star freshmen coming in. Will they have immediate impact or not? Hyder feels like the guy who will. Then on top of that, they get Tatum from Oklahoma. So Michigan's got, immediately
probably the best running back room in the Big Ten, if not the country.
And that's
already.
with 2 of those guys leaving from last year. One of them being Justice Haynes.
And Justice Haynes is an interesting case too, because he's being projected to go to Georgia Tech. Nothing is again Monday morning, 9:07 a.m. because you got timestamp this even. It's not a done deal yet. Yeah, I suppose there's a scenario where he comes back in, but the reality is Michigan's not going to invest the money into him, not because he's not worth it, but because for Michigan and their position needs, that money needs to be used elsewhere. Yeah. And again, I more power to him, but that's big. Having Marshall and Hyder and then adding Tatum into that fold is really big. The other big piece for Michigan, and none of this is rocket science, right? If you want a true recruiting and X's and O's podcast, you have those. That's fine. But I mean, Andrew Marsh was a big question mark because Michigan's pass catchers outside of Andrew Marsh, and I'd say Donovan McCulley was good last year too, but Michigan's pass catchers were lacking. They have been lacking. So locking down Andrew Marsh, huge. And then this weekend, they added Jamie French from Texas. Now you've got 2 guys in there who are both really talented athletes. And it's not just, well, we hope so. It's okay. We know these guys are going to be good. Michigan has guys like Jamar Browder and Shannon Goodwin. We saw a little bit of both of them, who will compete for wide receiver 3, except that Michigan also just added, JJ Buchanan from Utah. He plays this weird kind of wide receiver, tight end split role. No one's really sure exactly how to classify him. That guy's an immediate impact. So all that to say, Michigan's got all these, skill position players on offense, either coming back or that they're adding in to kind of do that putty thing and kind of secure a few different holes that they have. They should be really good. And one of the bigger concerns was actually not the quote skill position on offense, but was offensive line. Michigan loses Gio El-Hadi to the draft, which was expected.
Yeah,
that was going to happen.
Figured.
But then you had Andrew Sprague hit the portal. Jake Guarnera hit the portal. And you're sitting there going, this offensive line that was starting to kind of click and gel. And we thought, okay, the next couple of years, these guys might be really, really good, are suddenly disintegrating. You go, well, one of the important parts about having a really talented quarterback is you kind of have to protect him. But then getting Andrew Sprague back, getting Jake Guarnera back. Blake Frazier says he's back, announced that he's staying. Evan Link staying. Babalola, who is the 5-star that they signed, who got injured, didn't even get to see the field this year. So even though he hasn't played, he's been in the system, if you will. He's been around he's going to compete. Suddenly, Michigan's looking at Babalola and Link and Guarnera and Frazier and Sprague, and you've got a Phobie in there too, and Brady Norton, and you're suddenly looking at this offense going, this is still a very young offense. This might be a really good offense. And so that's all very positive stuff for Michigan. The defensive side of the ball is where more of the concerns are, because one, you're losing guys to the draft, right? You're losing Jimmy Rolder, you're losing Derek Moore, you're losing Jayshawn Barham, you lost Ernest Hausman to whatever he's dealing with right now, to himself, unfortunately. You lost Cole Sullivan to the portal. We'll see him in week 2 in Ann Arbor as Oklahoma comes up. I'm sure. And by the way, Cole Sullivan's a great player. I have no ill will against him, but I'm sure that will be a fun little side story in the midst of all that for this Michigan offense to line up against Sullivan. I think defensively, Michigan has made some really good additions, right? Jonah Leia from Utah transfers in. John Henry Daley, if he can be healthy, which is a huge question mark, that's a big if, but if he's healthy, it's a darn good football player right there. And you still have the Dominic Nichols and the Cam Brants. And this is actually where the boneheaded philosophy of Wink Martindale, who doesn't know who's on the field at any given point, actually kind of benefits you a little bit, because you've got guys who suddenly have a bunch of reps. Michigan getting Zeke Berry back out of the portal. Jair Hill says, hey, I'm staying. Even though the defense is thin in certain positions, number one, you still have all this week. Number two, you have got some key guys back. Having Berry and Hill back, I know Smith Snowden, is a guy that at this point has not signed with Michigan, but would be a huge get. They're looking at Cade Uluave from Cal. Ohio State had hosted Rasheem Biles. Michigan had as well.
Yeah.
He ends up, I believe, committing to, I want to say Texas. That might be wrong.
I couldn't remember if I officially saw anything.
Michigan. It's not Michigan or Ohio State.
I love
I can
that.
tell you that.
That's great. What a sweet treat.
But Uluave from Cal was widely considered to actually be the top linebacker in the portal. Michigan is looking like, knock on wood, they may sign him. That's huge. You've got Owosu Boateng, who got a lot of reps in there. So at the end of the day, Michigan will be fine, but there is definitely some more defensive side of the ball that I'm looking at this week going, who can you get to portal back in? Who can be the Spragues and the Guarneras and the Berries who you can bring back into the fold, right? TJ Metcalf, Elijah Dotson, Jordan Young. Some of these, Metcalf being the exception there as more of a veteran guy, but Elijah Dotson and Jordan Young, like these are guys that I want to stick around here because I see the potential. They haven't, again, as of right now, they haven't committed anywhere yet. Those are guys that I think Michigan needs to be able to bring back in. And you've still got guys like Mason Curtis. Like Michigan will be good. Michigan will be good. But I'd love to see some of those guys to the point about the Milan Grahams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see guys like Dotson and Young and more guys than that too, but guys like that stick around and wait it out. Know that you're going to get reps, develop so that you can not have that big gap, but from 26 to 27, you can hit the ground running. You've got that retention that matters so much in this day.
And I think that there is that almost immediate fear because it's college and not the pros, where you're looking at the second somebody puts their name in the transfer portal, you automatically assume they're leaving. It's essentially free agency like it is in pro. So just because somebody's putting their name in the transfer portal doesn't mean that they're automatically leaving.
Feeling out their options.
They're going out and they're checking out to see, okay, where do I have the best opportunity? B, who's going to pay me the most money?
Yeah.
It's very common for that to happen in the pros. It's just worded differently and worded a little bit scarier. So there's a handful of guys from both Ohio State and Michigan that are probably very big names, 4 or 5 star guys that both teams would love to come back. And I'm sure behind doors are working on doing just that. You may see some of the guys that we mentioned here today back on the same team to start the year. It's just
by the time you listen to the podcast, the entire landscape could Andrew Marsh could go, actually, no. And,
I would simply love for that to happen. I would love for probably 10 to 15 of these Ohio State guys to say, you know what, actually, let's go Bucks. But
this is the world. This is the world that we're living in. By the way, right now, wherever you're listening, would you go ahead and rate, review, and subscribe? That means the world. I think we started this season. This is year 7. 7. We started the year with like a couple hundred YouTube subscribers, and people are like, why isn't this channel growing? And we said, because you ain't telling nobody about it. And we're now, we're approaching like 1,400 now, which again, close. For a very small budget podcast, that's huge for us. So
and we've only been running this channel for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
So 3 years
just
in.
past the parent channel and like just great stuff. So please keep that going.
Yeah. Keep commenting as much as we like to troll and bring up hate comments. We really do love all of them because it's all in good fun.
There's a few that I don't
anytime
love.
If you want to direct that specifically at Jace, that would be awesome.
I love also that most of them are not. Most of them are addressed to you.
Look, I know who I am, and I'll stand on that hill.
I know who I am. I do. Okay, so I do. Before we go to the national semifinal and the national championship preview here, I need you to tell the story about old Bodpen Miller.
Yes. Oh,
so this is a guy.
Tried to avoid bringing it up.
This is a guy that Chris Collinsworth voice. Now here's a guy. He's in the transfer portal. Nobody except for you has ever heard of him. People were saying, is this an AI name generator? People are just messing with us. But this is a guy that you hated seeing go into the portal. Why?
Yeah,
I think this shows insight into who you are as a person.
Look, man, I don't think it's any secret. If you've listened to this show for a couple of years, I'm a hometown guy.
You have a Mansfield Till I Die sticker on your water
I sure
bottle
do.
right
I sure do. Mansfield Till I Die with the Yeti with Bigfoot.
Because why wouldn't you?
Because of course. So I'm a huge hometown guy. Whenever I got guys from my hometown that end up going to the Buckeyes, I root extra hard for them. Cade Stover was one of those guys.
Cade Stover got mentioned on this podcast more than any other.
As he should have. So I'm always going to root for those guys. Bogpen Miller, a dude from my hometown, came in as a 4-star recruit. He played quarterback his entire high school career, never played wide receiver, didn't play a snap. Got recruited by Brian Hartline to be a wide receiver. I forget what his 40 time was, but he went to a couple of those like spring camps at Ohio State, did well enough against people that it caught Brian Hartline's eye, ended up going and committing to Ohio State. I was so jacked for him to commit to the Buckeyes. My father-in-law was the team doctor for his high school team, so very close relationship with him. Great kid. Really high expectations. I actually interacted with him at the championship game, got a picture with him. Just a great guy to root for. I was really excited. And then Friday when I'm driving home, I get a message that just says Bogpen Miller has thrown his name into the transfer portal. And I immediately whip my phone out and I text Jace to only receive maybe the most disrespectful text I've ever gotten in my entire life.
It was like 40 minutes later because some of us have jobs. And
it was well after 5.
Some of us are committed. But I texted you and I said, I literally just saw this text and I had picked up my phone because I had just seen the news. I was a little bit late on, and I picked up my phone specifically to text you about old Hedgehog Miller, or I call him Hodgepodge Miller or Hedgehog Miller. And it was just, I needed you to know. And you like got all moody about it and like, I'm going to stare out. What was it? You said I'm going to stare out a window.
There's a lake where I'm from. There's like a reservoir. And I said I was tempted to go and take a video of me looking out into it with just a text and some sad music that just said, when you hear news that Bogpen Miller's transferring.
Or the news today.
It's a sad day.
It seems my life is going to change.
Look, I don't have a hometown kid right now on the team to root for.
Oh man, how are we going to hear about the most random players you've ever heard of in your life?
Is that not what this podcast is? That's why I signed up for it. I thought everybody tuned in here for my Cade Stover and Bogpen Miller lore.
No, no one is tuned in for that. How about this national championship?
How about it?
Indiana and Miami. They said this on the ESPN broadcast. It's low hanging fruit, but if you wanted new blood in the college football playoffs, if you want it in the semis and the natty, here you go.
Can I say something very briefly before we dive into the end?
Yeah, man, it's a podcast. Yes, you can say something.
For the Ohio State fan base that has been just all over the place about getting rid of Ryan Day and he's not going to be able to get it done and turning on Julian saying both of the teams that Ohio State lost to in games that they could have also very easily won are about to play for the national championship.
Does that make you feel better?
Kind of. I mean, it's not. There's no good thing as a consolation prize when it comes to this. It's all terrible.
Correct.
But if I'm going to try and bring any sort of positivity out of it, the two teams that you lost to are about to play for the championship trophy.
Leave it to.
And they were both in games that you weren't. I mean, Miami just flat out beat you. Indiana flat out beat you. But you had your chances, and it could have gone the other way.
Leave it to Ohio State fans to make this somehow about them.
Buckle up.
This is the classic where you've got the friend from like high school or college where, some awful tragedy happens overseas. And they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so heartbroken about this. I was in such a place 27 years ago.
Look,
I have a friend of a friend of a friend who once visited an ice cream shop there. And this is just
not true at all.
All I'm saying is, why can't you just be sad about it? Why does this have to be about you? That's what this is.
No, that's not what it is at all. All I'm saying is for all the Ohio State fans that are acting like the sky is falling.
It is.
Look at the competition. You just want it to be that way. You don't want us to have that mindset. And that's the Michigan side.
Because your rivals can
never
nothing.
Be happy.
Correct. And so, you get it. That's the new tagline for this podcast.
So that's why I'm just going to disregard it. If the Ohio State fan side, that is, the world is falling, this all needs to drastically change. I've seen a handful of people saying, I'm not even going to pay attention next year because they don't care. Okay. Good. Stop watching.
Honestly, I support that.
Yeah, that would do me so many favors because I don't have to read your stupid tweets. Let's talk Miami and Indiana.
Indiana and Miami. I mean, these are just two fantastic teams. Obviously, two outstanding defenses. Yeah. And two really good offenses too. Like Miami is a more, not that they can't be explosive, but they're a more methodical game control team. Indiana feels more explosive to me, but just incredibly talented. Just two different styles. It is so incredible, and it should be in a national title game, right? It is so incredibly hard for me to pick a winner here, right? So like even go back a handful of years, right? Mm-hmm. Georgia TCU was not a tough game to pick the winner of that game. And I say that again, as both our teams lost to those two teams. So respect. It was not hard to see who was going to win that game. Michigan-Washington was a good matchup, but it felt like Michigan was going to beat Washington, and they did. Ohio State-Notre Dame. It felt like Ohio State was going to beat Notre Dame, and they did. I don't have a good feel for this one.
I think the opposite. I
don't have a good feel for this one. And I'm nervous. I am afraid because picking either one of these teams, like you've offended Indiana and Miami fans left and right.
Both hate me.
I don't feel like I've offended either of these fan bases, but now I feel like I have to. And I found out that the fans are very passionate.
Come on in. The water's fine.
Here's the low hanging fruit analysis here is just, there's a part of me that just doesn't know how you slow this Indiana offense down. Mm-hmm. So going into the Oregon game, and again, Oregon, Miami, two very different teams, but going into the Oregon game, I mean, I picked Oregon in that game. I felt like Indiana was finally at the place where everyone was kind of expecting them to win. And I felt like Dan Lanning and the Ducks would be like, cool, that's fine. And it just never materialized. I felt like Oregon had the balance on defense and offense to play with Indiana, to play that same type of game. And it just never materialized. I mean,
first play. Yeah.
The way I yelled, the way I went, what? My wife is sitting there and she enjoys football too, but she wasn't really paying attention to the game. But I'm like, you have to stop what you're doing and watch this. It was just incredible. And that was the game. Yep. That was enough. So there's a part of me that's just really unsure, even when the matchup looks like it should be able to hang with them, can you actually slow Indiana down? The only ones who, frankly, if I'm going to take the foam Wolverine head off again, the only ones who've really been able to do it were Ohio State. Now, Penn State played a close game with them as well, but defensively, I mean, Penn State still gave up 27 points. Ohio State gave up 13. And I do think that there's some credit to Ohio State there. Mm-hmm. I'd say that Miami has a very comparable defense to Ohio State. Look at the CFP. Look at what Miami was able to do against Ohio State. Look what Miami's been able to do in this playoff. Like if there's a defense that can slow down Indiana, not just slow them down, but can actually beat Indiana, it's probably Miami's defense. That's the one to do it.
They pose the biggest threat.
Indiana gave up, a handful of sacks to Ohio State, a handful of sacks to Alabama, really just one to Oregon, which is incredible. Obviously, Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, obviously, that's their bread and butter. They're going to get pressure. And can they force Fernando Mendoza into making mistakes? This is not rocket science. I mean, you can look at any college football game and you could say the same thing because I feel like we do. If they get pressure and can force mistakes, the question is, can they?
Quarterback, you win game. If rocket science.
Score more point than them, then you win.
Yeah. If time hits zero and you have more points,
they asked
game is yours.
They asked Christian McCaffrey after the Niners game yesterday. They're like, how did you had this strategy? How'd that play out? He goes, well, we won. So good. I don't know. Before I give the prediction though, where are you at with this? Because you said that you feel differently. I feel like this is just no separation. You feel different.
I feel different. And I'm not even trying to be disrespectful, but I'm going to have to offend one of these, like you said.
You don't mind doing that.
I don't. If I truly believe something, I'm going to stand on that hill. I have disrespected Indiana for far too long. Last year, I thought it was deserving.
Miami aside, that's just undebatably true.
Well, but I would still even stand on my side that prior to the Big Ten championship, I felt like what I was saying was still valid. Until they beat Ohio State, I just needed to see it because I had heard the same thing last year coming into Columbus, and then they got curb stomped. So I just had to see it against my team because that's where my standards were at. They did that. And ever since then, I feel like I've been fair to them. I've picked them in almost every single game. I don't know if I actually picked against them in any game.
I don't think you have.
I've been a firm believer. And the laser focus that I see from this team, I mean, I'm looking at all these tough games and I'm thinking, well, the Alabama game should be at least good. They'll still win it, but it should be at least fun. It wasn't. Then I go, okay, well, Oregon, they're still probably going to beat them. I've seen this game earlier in the year. It's at a neutral site. They'll still probably win it, but it should be a good one. And it wasn't. And it wasn't necessarily because of a ton of mistakes the other team did as much as the way Indiana played was just so much harder, so much faster. so much more experienced. The drive, the hunger is just there. You can see it in the coach. You can see it in the maturity that Fernando Mendoza plays with. You can see it in the strength of Roman. Yeah, there's just something different when you can see a team and you've seen them play in big enough games and you see the composure that they have and the style that they play with and the swagger that they play with. And it's not overly flashy. It just feels pro ready. And I look across the board.
I think it's pretty flashy, man. I mean, these guys are
they're explosive. Out. I mean, look at the game against Oregon. They got outgained total yardage. But it just didn't matter. I mean, Mendoza threw for $177, but he also had 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
They didn't really need to.
Well, because their defense was just so
good. And so I'm looking at that and I'm going, I don't know if I did a little head to head, like who do I think's the better coach, Mario Cristobal or Curt Cignetti? And I think without a doubt it's Cignetti. And that's not to be disrespectful to Miami at all. I just think Cignetti's at a different level right now. I'm looking at the quarterback play, and while I think Carson Beck has played well, he made really, really great decisions against Ole Miss. I'm looking at Mendoza, and I'm going, this guy is a top 2 pick in the draft. He's got that maturity, that professionalism. He's got the leadership skills that you want. He has obviously all the talent that you want. I put it as an even split between Fletcher and Hemby. I think maybe I'd probably give the slighter edge to Fletcher, but I think it's pretty close. It's closer than people want to give credit for. Wide receiver, I'm going Indiana. I think Surratt and Cooper are better than what you see. Malachi Toney's the better of all of them, but I think I'm still going Indiana. And I think even if you put the defense as a split, I'm looking at the amount of pressure that Indiana's been able to get on the quarterback. I look at Ole
Miami
Miss,
has 2 though. But
against Ole Miss, they had, and I know this is stat watching, but they had 1 sack against Ole Miss.
Stats are stats. We've often said,
but they had 1 sack against them, and to be honest, they still gave up some points. I think that was the first game all season that they had gave up over 20 points in regulation.
That was the one concern I had for Miami coming out of that game. Was I expected Miami's offense to have success, and they did.
Well,
but I was surprised to see Ole Miss have that much success against the defense.
And what stood out to me,
which Ole Miss is a great offense. Don't get me wrong, but if we're trying to project into this game here, does that tell us anything?
Yeah, and I think what makes it interesting is I'm looking through the Ole Miss and Miami game, and there's certain things about it that stood out to me that I think actually play in their favor. Their offense was crazy efficient throughout that whole game. They had 28 first downs, 459 yards of offense. They were 11 of 19 on 3rd down, 2 of 2 on 4th down. But here's where it gets crazy for me. Time of possession. Did you realize how big of a gap that was? I hadn't until I actually went back and looked at stuff. Miami had possession for 41 minutes and 22 seconds. That means Ole Miss had the ball for a total of 18 minutes and 28 seconds. That is it. They had the ball for 18 minutes and they were done. The defense was just phenomenal. I know they still gave up over 20. It's tricky for me because I look at these defenses and it's like staring in a mirror in my mind. They both have really incredible defensive lines that can get to the quarterback. I just feel like when it comes to that, you need a quarterback that can run on his feet, escape the pocket, but also can make smarter throws. And I think if you have to twist my arm and make me force on which quarterback I think is going to do that better, it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. If I think that there's going to be a coach that's going to have his team better prepared to handle those situations, if there's a team that I think has been built to handle the noise, because let's not forget, this is a home game for Miami, literally.
Yeah.
So you're going into going to be a tough test.
Why do I feel like Indiana is going to out ratio the fan base?
They will 100%. But I'm looking at this and I'm going, what coach do I think actually wants to be in that environment? And I think maybe outside of Dan Lanning, it's Curt Cignetti.
Yeah, he is not
psychotic. He's psychotic.
I'm happy at times.
Yeah, at times.
Okay.
Even in the press conference when Mendoza was talking about his stats and he said, I think I had 5 or 6 pre-snap penalties, and Cignetti goes 7. And I love it.
It's great. That's what you want.
There's just an edge about this team that I can't deny any longer. I have Indiana winning this thing 31-20.
Man, I feel like there's so little separation here. But I felt that way against Oregon. And again, it's kind of I could see this game could be a 1-point game or a 31-point game. And I don't know. I don't know. I also took Indiana.
Okay. The right choice.
I'm gonna take it closer. I'm gonna take it. I don't think they cover.
Yeah. What are they? 7.5 right now?
I'm gonna take 27-20. I think it's just under. I think Indiana 27, Miami 20. Simply because I feel like there is much less separation between these teams. I think I feel like these teams are built so similar, and Miami also just feels like, so like while Indiana like is America's team, I get that. There's something about Miami right now that feels just kind of like that team of destiny a little bit. There's that, the way that they, the conversation about should they have made the playoffs, should they have not? Yes, they should have. Alabama shouldn't. That's the correct response. But all, this is the same old Miami team and da. The fact that they then got matched up, that they went into A&M and beat them, give up 3 points, that they went to not to Ohio State, but faced Ohio State, beat them, not fluked their way through, beat them. The fact that they were then able to do the same thing with Ole Miss, who kind of also felt like that team of destiny thing where it's like, hey, we lost the coach, but we're doing, and got it done. You've talked about, there are those moments where you just feel like a team is going to win a game, right? Yeah. You reference, in 23, you referenced that Roman Wilson tipped ball catch against Alabama. Yeah. Where Michigan's driving down to tie the game and the ball gets tipped and everyone thinks it's picked off and Roman Wilson kind of does his best jump man impression, goes up and gets it. Saves the season. Miami, Malachi Toney with that fumble that bounces right back to himself. Yeah. Felt kind of like that. There's something about Miami that just makes me go, man, I just don't know that this team's getting blown out. Can I say a rage baity thing that's going to make maybe the Miami fan base a little mad at me? And again, I'm saying that while still being willing to pick Indiana because I can't make that mistake. I can't make that mistake again after the Oregon pick. I'm going to say something that Miami fans are probably going to get mad at me for. Well, they already hate you. So that's why I'm just going to pile it on because I don't really care. Deflect away from me. This is the first year they've been relevant since I was a child. So there you go. See, that's good. Why do I let you fire me up? Let me just say the thing. This Miami team reminds me a lot of Ohio State last year. A team that had all the talent in the world. The expectations were sky high. During the regular season, they fell short. 2-loss team, no conference championship. People are debating, well, should they get in? I think last year was a little different. I think a lot of people still thought, regardless of everything, Ohio State deserved to go in. I didn't think that wasn't the conversation with Miami, but they had all the talent, failed to exceed those expectations in the regular season. They get into the playoffs. They have just a gauntlet. You have to go on the road to Texas A&M, who had one loss, who were talked about as being a championship favorite team, and they win. Then you have to go up and play against Ohio State, who had the best defense in the nation and a loaded offense, and you flat out win. And this is stuff you've already said. Then you go into Ole Miss, a team that was touted as this highly explosive offense, and you find a way to grit it out and win. And now you're at your last test, where I think the biggest difference is you looked at last year and you saw a huge talent gap between Ohio State and Notre Dame, and I think that was very fair to say, and I think, honestly, it was super evident on the field. This is another giant test that Miami's got to overcome. And I don't see it happening 4 times. I think Indiana is way too tough. And I just think they're built different. I'll tell you this. It should be, I would say it's going to be a phenomenal football game, but also just the way that some of these playoffs have gone so far have just been so unexpected. By the way, I'm not saying Miami's going to get blown out, but it wouldn't surprise me. I didn't think Indiana would blow out Alabama. I didn't think they would blow out Oregon. I thought they'd blow out Oregon. I will not be able to wrap my mind on. If Miami goes in and blows out Indiana, then we may as well quit this podcast. That's the one scenario I don't think happens. I think if Miami wins, it's a close game. Would not surprise me if Indiana won a close game. Wouldn't surprise me if Indiana blew them out by 14 plus. Have we offended every fan base? And by we, by the way, I mean you. I don't think I've said anything crazy. Who else could I make fun of? We already hit Michigan State. Yeah, we made Michigan. That's fine. When do we have the conversation about Dan Lanning and his lack of being able to actually go and start to win big games? We're not going to be doing that. That's the next episode. Please rate and review, subscribe wherever you're listening right now. As a reminder, rivalpod.com if you want to support the podcast, and at rivalpod on YouTube and across social media. National championship game coming on Monday evening next week. Podcast will be out on Tuesday for obvious reasons because we can't predict the future, as you well know if you've listened to any of our predictions for the football season so far. The Rivalry Podcast is part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and the River Podcast Network from River Radio Ministries.
New episodes out every Monday.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening right now, and follow on social media at RivalPod and RivalPod.com.
And if you like what you hear, share with a friend so they can listen too.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu. At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.